Reason number 4,782, how I know I'm aging. All my text notifications are medical. Scheduling, billing, reminders about scheduling, billing. Oh my. Welcome, welcome, and one more big welcome to Bangs and Botox, Women Who Wear Aging Well, the podcast where humor meets real talk. I'm your host, Diane Dean-Epps, author, teacher, comedian, mama, and Mimi to the second power. Each month I offer up laugh, motivational, and inspirational fodder. Fingers crossed. That's the intention. One of my superpowers is being able to find the funny in just about anything. And aging is by far my biggest challenge. From chin hairs to career pivots, from never-ending hot flashes to, what the heck was I saying again? Bangs and Botox represents the real viewpoint of a non-famous, non-influencer, non-sponsored baby boomer navigating aging. P.S. There's a companion piece in the form of a book that goes by the same name of Bangs and Botox, and it's just an Amazon click away. Just a quick shout out to my male listeners. This podcast is for you too. How so? Well, because you love a woman, and more than likely several women. They're your moms, sisters, grandmothers, friends, aunts, confidants, temperature checkers, inspiration givers, and so much more. Women is in the title because this scripted, so it doesn't seem like it is scripted show, is from the perspective of this baby boomer woman who aims at aging well. It's a slice of wonderful to be here with you today for our comedy clatch that I refer to as sit down, stand up. Now, where did we leave off? Oh yeah. So in my last show, Beauty and the Aging Beast, I addressed the topic of beauty and whatever that means when we age. Those of us who have pondered this one know the answer is something along the lines of the inner beauty covers us in an outer lived beauty that simply cannot be allowed to be measured with the cultural low bar of youth first, no pores, and no evidence of having used our faces at all with any expressions. Now that I'm older, I can take a beat and really notice things like when the portal of weird opens. And then I can choose how I'm going to deal with all of the nonsense that can come my way, sometimes on a daily basis. And then this led me to contemplate the why. And I think what we're seeing is we're missing that filter of decorum, I guess I'll call it. Because part of our interactions have to do with how we treat each other. We know that most of us are out there trying to be kind and helpful. And if things go awry, well, we just walk away. We're trying to, go high, not low. And the choices are always to fight, flee, or flow. But when that portal of weird opens, and I'm going to get into some of the specifics on that one later, then, maybe we need like a refresher course, some of us, and I'm not talking to you who you're listening. It's those people out there that we interact with that it gets a little, well, again, weird. Maybe there are some specifics that could be laid out, and I will do that in a later Storytime with Diane segment called Very Civilly Yours. And it talks about how George Washington came up with some very specific ways we should all behave. Post-pandemic, I noticed some sort of wall or maybe multiple walls. They came down, but, not necessarily in a good way. When we went digital, we threw out all kinds of considerations when we communicate, like that trite but true read the room element. The wall of decorum and in-person niceness, it just seems to be in short supply. We're social media fueled and informed, and anonymous digital communication is happening as the rule and not the exception, and then sans those social consequences that so many of us did grow up with, and they were real immediate, weren't they? There's been this whole cultural shift toward the individual's perspective, sometimes to the exclusion of benefits to community, groups, humanity, and all of that good stuff. Now, I'm not advocating necessarily for hive mentality, but I'm always advocating for connection. And so these are my theories, and I bet you have your own. I'd love to hear them, so don't be shy about using the comment section to let me know what your portal of weird experiences are like. This show today, Portal of Weird is what it's called, is all about the many ways it does get weird out there living off the mat. I mean, sometimes it just seems to be some sort of supermoon or blue moon or Capricorn rising situation that sets off the crazy, odd vibrations that ping around in the universe. I'll know the portal of weird is wide open when occurrences, comments, situations just aren't connected to anything I'm doing or saying at the time. The situations aren't good and they're not bad. They're just weird. Sometimes the weird is funny. And in fact, the antidote is an anecdote. Like this short one. I was headed over to take care of one of my grand Twinkies when I noticed a sign that I found hilarious. Here's what it said: walk-in mobility clinic. Just like, what? That's funny weird, and it helped me laugh when I really needed a laugh because, man, it has been a week. How are you doing? I hope well. And remember, when you need a laugh, come find me. Let me tell you where in just a sec. Okay, if you've been listening to Bangs and Botox for a while, then you know this podcast is distributed free by oodles of providers: Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube. There's a load of them. Besides podcasting and teaching, I'm also a writerly person who I professionally write books and essays, columns, and oh yes, a rando op-ed or 7. You can find my published work on my website at Dean-Epps.com. Of course, you can always let your fingers do the tapping and find me online. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, weird stuff. So I've found a multitude of ways to deal with the weird and the not so weird. In addition to using humor as a coping mechanism when things get real funky out there, it's important I surround myself with people who lift me up. The fact of the matter is we all have uncomfortable, unfair, unprovoked, unfathomable experiences that we need to navigate and then process. My recent challenge, when the portal of weird yawned open for me, reminded me of all the fabulous people in my life who have shown up and do show up for me, enriching my experience, helping me, and making me feel safe. They open up the portal of positivity, which naturally overshadows the portal of weird. I have been so gifted with people who appeared right when I needed them, offering up unforeseen solutions when I felt extremely down and pretty darn out. In our family, we have a financial version of this. We call it lovingly the EAM program, Expect a Miracle. When our finances are tapped out and it's looking pretty bleak, or sometimes maybe even we are doing fine, but we'll get a bounty coming our way. And that often can get us out of a tight spot. So passing through my portal of positivity, reaching out a hand to me, are people like Ray Blumenshine. He's one of 3 master teachers that were assigned to me when I did my student teaching back in 1902. All right, it wasn't 1902, but it was a while ago. I was 6 months pregnant, and it turned out to be a high risk pregnancy. And I had unrelenting, I tell you, morning, noon, and night sickness. And then I was assigned as one of my classes, a class that really put the risk in at risk. Only it was, me that was at risk after one of the students started a fire in my classroom trash can. And these are just two of the examples. There were many. Another student threatened bodily harm if I didn't change her grade. Oh boy. And to top it off, after teaching a different class with a different master teacher for several weeks, I was so happy it was going well. I mean, it was going gangbusters. I was having a great experience with these kiddos, connecting, learning. And then when I met with the master teacher for that particular class, she told me the students liked me better than they liked her. She ran from the room crying, and she never spoke to me again. Activate portal of weird engagement sequence. I didn't think I could make it through the semester, and I was devastated to think my dream of teaching might not happen. That's when Ray said he'd help me by doing everything for his original class that I'd been assigned. It was the help I needed so I could make it through, and I've never forgotten Ray's kindness, his empathy, and his mentorship. I thanked him over and over again when he was still on this plane of existence. I have so many other folks I could tell you about, and I bet you do too. There was the nurse who advocated for me strongly when I was experiencing a healthcare crisis, and then the treatment failed. The dance director who fought for me to be in the dance company I'd been accepted into when the other dance director tried to retract my offer because she felt I didn't have the right body type. The good deeds that have been gifted to me have been small, medium, and large, but all of them impacted my life positively, and I remember every one of them. So, as I mentioned earlier, embedded in the portal of weird occurrences are oftentimes interactions with people, stuff that they say, and you know what? Yes, pretty rude, a lot of times comments, and that brings us to story time with Diane. What if we had some sort of rules for how we act that could be applied to very specific situations? And then I learned that George Washington drafted rules of civility when he was an adolescent. I was fascinated by his forward-thinking approach, not just to be a kind person and to encourage kindness, but to specifically lay out what the behavior should look like, making it not so much just an affirmation to be kind, but how to live it. And the naturally occurring humor embedded in these rules that he wrote, he hand wrote them, of course, like, there was a typewriter back in 1744, or maybe it was 1745. It is comedy gold. Just the social scenarios alone are a hoot. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Story Time with Diane. Very civilly yours. Lately, I've been irked by the lack of civility that has hit our country like some sort of syllabic plague. A few years back, National Public Radio ran a story about George Washington and the fact that when he was a mere lad, he took it upon himself to handwrite a little something he called 110 Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior in Company and Conversation. These were built upon a number of 6th century guidelines he'd gleaned from a Jesuit gentleman. When I read the list, it made me wonder, what happened to us? And by us, I mean our society. Sometimes we are just plain not nice to one another. I notice this when I flick on a news show and watch a panel interview. The people don't even allow each other to finish breathing in and out, let alone finish their sentences before they hit the launch attack sequence. A question is asked of the guest. She is poised to answer, takes a breath, utters a syllable, followed by heading into a conversational direction related to the question, and then some numbskull goes out of turn and rips into her. George dealt with this issue in number 6 on his list when he stated, "Speak not when you should hold your peace." There isn't a whole bunch of peace holding out there or listening as far as I can see. George Washington was a teenager when he set forth his intentions as to how he wanted to live his life and how others might follow suit. I'm thinking teenagers have changed quite a bit since the 18th century because we know he was most likely not spending his time rolling his eyes when his parents were talking, as is evidenced by number 12, where he writes, "Roll not the eyes, lift not one eyebrow higher than the other." The father of our country wasn't spending all of his time standing in front of the mirror either, preening as he admired the cut of his jib. Although there are plenty of paintings of George, so he was not adverse to a pose here or there. He was a thinking man who did something with his time by establishing a respectful tone, as he sets forth in number 49. Use no reproachful language against anyone, neither curse nor revile. Notice he didn't add, until they have left the room, or unless you act anonymously. I've always known I'm no Mother Teresa, may she rest in peace. But as it turns out, I'm no George Washington either, because I'm guilty of not even making a list about treating people respectfully, let alone checking it twice, let alone 110 scenarios. Woof. And the details on our Potomac River Riders list. Woo! I mean, no less than 19 points of those 110 point deals are about consumption of food, followed by all manner of, well, manners. George knew how important it is to refrain from irritating behavior like crunching carrots, sniffing incessantly, or tapping your foot to that new kid Mozart's music. He takes this point on with number 4 on his list, where it includes taking note of the distraction that is a humming voice. I ask you now to join me in my vow to be a more civilized person, of whom George Washington would be extremely proud, adhering to the number 1 rule of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation, which is every action done in company ought to be with some sign of respect to those that are present. And for those times when we suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, faced with enduring life's hard blows or, blowhards, let us not engage with the citizenry administering the aforementioned blows, but rather, in keeping with the father of our country's advice in rule number 65 about comportment in these types of situations, speak not injurious words, neither in jest nor earnest scoff, at none, although they give occasion. I hear you on that one, George, and I have a rule about this that's very similar. And for those of you who have difficulty keeping a civil tongue in your head, let us not engage with you negatively, but instead bid you a farewell with a jaunty good day to you. And I'll think of that phrase as being equivalent to away with you, stay away, and a pox on your house. Same diff, but much more satisfying. For now, I'm going to put to bed 2 segments I've been having a lot of fun with in my podcast. One is called Songs You'll Be Humming, and the other is Vocabulary Versatility. That's because I wanted to script in 2 new segments, and the first one is called Fun and Funny Facts. These are the snippets of info you can utilize when there's a slow point in a convo that threatens to become awkward. You can insert a quick, hey, did you know, and really showcase your social prowess. So, here's this episode's fun and funny fact. The hashtag symbol is officially known as an octothorpe. Unofficially, it's known as the pound sign or number sign. Way back in 1960-something, when monopolies were thought to be just fine, Ma Bell was in charge of all the telephones. Post-rotary, don't you know, they debuted the touch-tone telephone keypad, adding a symbol to the keypad. The board engineering team back at the home office needed a formal name, so they decided it had to begin with octo for the 8 points of the symbol. And then why Thorpe? We don't know. We really don't. The real reason is lost to the annals of time. But there are loads of theories. Some stories suggest it was just a rando suffix with absolutely zero meaning. That sounds about right. Next up is a new section called Mensa Moments. Mensa Moments is a little something I've been wanting to do for a while because it's very on brand for me with the element of humor, but specifically self-deprecating humor. Now, it's okay. You don't need to email me with the name and number of your therapist. Email, text, whatever. I need you to know it's not because I'm lacking in self-esteem, self-awareness, or any of the selves that signal we're in good mental shape. I find this type of humor provides me with an opportunity to really hone in on the absurd and lighten the emotional load of what I experience in the world. It allows me to show a vulnerability and connect and take the awkward and absurd and call it out by laughing at myself. I'm perfectly imperfect. This is such a great pressure release valve. And there's so much fodder I provide for myself, like recently I could not figure out why my printer wasn't printing. I mean, I know the bigger question might be, why are you still printing stuff? But, we'll just go with this. So I went through the diagnostics. I turned it off. I turned it on. I did hit print again. I did all these things. And then I saw in the little teeny tiny window that it said the following: out of paper. Oh, mystery solved. Now for the somethings. Something weird I did. Boy, how am I going to hone this one down to, I only want the show to be under a half an hour, so I'll just pick one. So when the portal of weird, like I said, opened up hardcore for me last week, I accessed ChatGPT for a pep talk. You know what? It was wonderful. Now, granted, we know the advice. I'm using those annoying finger quotes that you can't see. Thank goodness, right? We know the advice is from aggregated sources, but it helped me begin to change the channel from a really negative experience I had and to move through it. So yay on that one. Something I'm doing. Boy, could be anything, huh? Well, this is very simple. I've been writing a lot, and I have a few new essays that, here's the best part. They've found new homes in publications that I've never been published in them. Yay! Are you a writer? Okay, keep going. Don't listen when people say that your voice isn't okay. It is. I've got 2 new essays in Boomer magazine, Beauty and the Bounce and a daily love letter, how we used to read all about it, and then the file cabinet in Women Flourish magazine. Next up along these same lines of content, I've been recording YouTube shorts. And, they're fun because, they're short. And then I get to do my stand-up comedy versus sit-down stand-up. And instead of, I don't have to do a tight 6-minute set, but under a minute. That I can handle. Something I'm watching. Hallmark's The Way Home is a fantasy drama. What a fun show about time traveling. Oh, I'm a sucker for time traveling shows. It stars Andie MacDowell, who is also the executive producer. The premise of this one is 3 generations of strong women are both held back and ultimately empowered by their past. And you know what? There's magical time travel through a portal, because we're talking about portals, in the form of a pond. Yeah, I love it. Next up, I had never watched Ugly Betty when it first debuted, but I knew it was considered a great show. No kidding. Is it ever? I've now discovered it through Hulu. The title does make me cringe a little because I just don't love ugly as a descriptor, unless I'm talking about ugly crying. But in Ugly Betty, it features pre-Barbie the movie, America Ferrera, who is so talented. She just shines in everything she does, and this is no exception. Something I'm loving, mascara. in multiple colors. My current faves are purple and green, but all the colors of the rainbow are available. Before I yodel out, that's a wrap, let's get to our closing essential question and a quote that goes along with it. About that navigating the weird, the awkward, the tough, I'm going to go out on a balance beam here and just share a fun and funny quote of connection from none other than Dr. Seuss. Here it is. We are all a little weird, and life's a little weird. And when we find someone whose weirdness is compatible with ours, we join up with them and fall in mutual weirdness and call it love. I have one simple, essential question for you. I know. Whoa. Simplicity. Here it is too. When you're in a weird or negative headspace, what do you do to get out of the mental loop fueling it? Let's sit with that for a sec. Maybe you're in that space now. Do you move around? Maybe a walk, some dancing, a quick bounce on a trampoline? Or do you do some box breathing, journal writing, connect with a friend? These are all fabulous options because we all experience the portal of weird, even if we call it something else. The beauty of aging is that we know that there are so many choices to get through the portal of weird. Something bubbles up, it boomerangs over to us, sometimes with full contact emotional consequences, and then we're uncomfortable, we're depressed or confused, or check, all the above. I know I've said this already, but it bears repeating. It bears repeating. Oftentimes the occurrences can't be, shouldn't be classified as good or bad, right or wrong. That's when embracing the term weird comes in handy. Trust yourself, trust your feelings, trust your process. Something is going on, that's for sure. Your feelings are your facts. That's a wrap for this week, dear listeners. Our experience is a shared one. Thank you for taking the time to connect. Whether it's in person, via the airwaves, or the written word, it's all powerful in creating community. It's your right to own your space and your place in this world. Until our next Bangs and Botox, Women Who Wear Aging Well, Comedy Coffee Clatch podcast, friends.